For example, we value good parenting because it produces good members of society. Sure, that's one example that supports your hypothesis, but I can give you a lot of other examples that don't support your hypothesis. There are countless such examples unless you have some tangible counter-argument. I think this idea stands on its own merits. No, I do have, but the game's not gonna take it. Alright, fine. Yeah. Question relevance? How is this related to your conclusion? Pinpointing the origin of good seems like a logical place to begin our search. Wouldn't you agree, old chap? No. Yes. Alright, fine. Good comes from the accomplishment of some desirable end. No, but there's a problem with that already. Alright, let's go on. Happiness and freedom of suffering are the only things truly desirable as ends. I don't know. I mean, what if happiness causes suffering? Like taking drugs. What do you mean by that? Out of all the things we can strive for, happiness is the only true end. No, but you're making that assumption. Everything else is only serves to support this end. You're assuming that. I mean, if you ask Hobbes, it's all about survival. I mean, they're so busy trying to survive that they don't even think about happiness. I mean, happiness is a luxury if you're just trying to survive. Principle backing? Can you back this up? Back that up. Most things which mankind values, love, peace, property, are valued because they further some other end. If we follow such value chain to the conclusions, they all come to rest on happiness. Not always. For example, peace furthers security, which furthers luxury, which furthers happiness. See? Okay. I mean, they give examples, but then you don't get to give counterexamples. Very well reasoned. Question relevance? How is this related to conclusion? Here I further refine the ideas of good by narrowing down the possible desirable ends. I don't think this narrowing thing is a good way to approach philosophy. I mean, there are always exceptions. I mean, for every rule you make up, there's almost always exceptions in terms of philosophy. I mean, in your, in the act of narrowing things down, it's very easy to miss those exceptions. I feel like I think it's a dangerous way to approach philosophy. I mean, it's the easy way if you kind of just ignore the exceptions, the exceptions to your ideas, but it's not the right way to do it. Anyway, all right. Thus, actions are right in proportion as they tend to promote happiness, wrong as they tend to produce unhappiness. Well, do I have any challenges? Good as happiness. Okay. Clarification? What do you mean by that? If your actions make people happy, there must be something positive about them. Likewise, if your actions make people unhappy, there must be some negative quality to them. Simply put, an action is right as the happiness it creates. But happiness for whom? For the self or for others? The overall population distribution is irrelevant. Interesting. Happiness distribution added to the idea slate. According to Mill, it is irrelevant how happiness is distributed as long as it increases overall. That's pretty bad. So I mean, if you cause suffering to other people, so if you cause suffering to a large number of people to create happiness for a few people. Anyway, the game will describe this later on. Backing. This seems pretty self-sufficient to me. I don't know. Never mind. As a result, one should choose every action in order to maximize overall happiness. As for clarification, what do you mean by that? The most moral act is the one that most increases net happiness. It's very easy, for example, then to say slavery is correct, because by enslaving and exploiting, a smaller number of people, you greatly increase the comfort of a large number of people. Thus, slavery is moral. You see what I mean? Like, if we just take averages, I mean, you put 10% of the population into slave labor camps to create all the luxuries that the other 90% need, then, according to Mills, that would be moral, which is, or according to Mills's, argument, that would be moral. If you need further clarification, I suggest you re-examine my previous statements. Press for backing. What evidence do you have to support this? In my opinion, it is the natural product of my previous observations. If furthering happiness determines how right your actions are, it concludes that one should take the course that furthers it the most. Right. Challenge distribution.
Nonsense!
John Stuart Mill! Exclamation. Yes, Socrates? I understand the reasoning behind your philosophy, but following your reasoning in all situations creates some worrisome implications. What, Dad? Are you serious? Mill's philosophy is perfect. No, continues Socrates. Gladly. The problem here is that happiness is not equivalently exchanged. It can be gained and lost in unequal measure. Since your philosophy does not care how happiness is distributed, this leads to some unfortunate scenarios, like slavery. I think they should have talked about slavery. Let's say, for example, that I would gain twice as much happiness from punching Hobbes in the face as he says he would lose from being punched. The guy was already pretty miserable after all. According to your philosophy, in this situation, punching Hobbes would be entirely moral, as it would increase overall happiness. But as much as Hobbes was a jerk, I can't believe that violence would be the right course of action. They should have used the slavery example, I think, because that's more powerful. And it's true, too. Like, quite a lot of times in human history, the majority have enslaved a minority precisely to increase overall happiness. Their own happiness, at the expense of the slaves, of course. But it's wrong. Indeed, I think I prefer my debates not devolving into fistfights. I don't know, fistfights are kinda cool too. But that's just one example. Okay, maybe he does talk about slavery. Oh no, he talks about monster. These are stupid examples. Let's say there was a monster that would gain far more happiness from eating you than you could ever gain over the course of your life. Would the moral action then be to feed yourself to the monster? Your philosophy would say yes, but that seems preposterous, does it not? Dad, what are you doing? This situation would never arise. Bringing imaginary monsters into the debate, is that really how you intend to get home?
Nonsense!
Actually, your father raises some good points. Ariadne, how do you... Alright, A-R-I-A-D-N-E. Come on, Google. A-R-I-A-D-N-E. Daughter of Minos, king of Crete, and his queen... daughter of Helios, the sun titan. Mary Ariadne wait, what? Ariadne? Okay, Ariadne. It's not a silent E, alright. Ariadne, he who knows only his own side of the case knows little of that, alright. As thinkers, it is our job not only to challenge the thoughts of others, but to challenge ourselves. Oh, that's pretty noble. Both of the thought experiments Socrates has presented are valid, and both are troubling. Judging every choice as it arises seems, upon reflection, difficult to defend. Are you serious? Please don't let my dad run all over you. Not to worry, Ariadne. The core of my philosophy still stands strong. Allow me a moment, gentlemen, to present an altered position. Okay. The problem you have described can be addressed through the application of universal rules. Universal rules. I don't believe in universal rules because there's always exceptions to the rules. There's always exceptions. Rules are supposed to be simple or relatively simple statements to describe what to do in more complex situations. But because the statements are so simple, they never take into account the full possible complexity of all the possible situations that the rules are to be applied in. Rules are useful, but rules are always limited in the sense that there can always be exceptions to the rules. Anyway, these rules should be chosen in order to create the most happiness possible with as little harm as possible. While these rules may not maximize overall happiness, they will at least guarantee that net happiness never decreases. So you're compromising maximizing happiness in order to minimize unhappiness. Actions can be considered moral when they follow such rules. Minimizing unhappiness. Now we're heading towards mediocrity, aren't we? As you can see, the idea that happiness is the source of morality is still possible. I believe I shall refer to this as rule utilitarianism. Okay. An interesting evolution of your ideas indeed. You see, Dad, New's philosophy is solid, as I told you. Because I actually studied this stuff. Whatever happened to me having to decide for myself? That was before you hopped on the smug wagon. The smug wagon? Socrates, shall we continue? Sure. The smug wagon sounds cool. I guess so. The problem you have described can be addressed through the application of universal rules. Oh, I remember now. Yeah, anyway, let's just keep going. Ask for clarification. What do you mean by this? You described to me a problem of distribution, the fact that utilitarianism does not care where happiness goes. This can be addressed by following general rules, which I will elaborate upon later, alright? I think we can just keep going. These rules should be chosen in order to create the most happiness possible with as little harm as possible. Ask for clarification. What do you mean by rules? Are we talking about contracts? No, while Hobbes' theory and this could result in some of the same guidelines, the rationale behind their existence would be different. There are certain rules which, if always followed, would make society a happier place than if they were not. If always followed. See, that's the problem, because rules always have exceptions. You can always think of a situation where the rule doesn't make sense. These are the rules which meet the qualifications of rule utilitarianism. These rules should be chosen to create... Okay, backing. What evidence do you have to support the statement? As happiness is still the only ultimate end, the only rules that make sense would be the ones that further that end. Thus, it makes sense that the rules which govern our actions should be chosen accordingly. Question relevance. Here I detail the form that the previously mentioned rule will take, alright? It's an essential step in bringing everything together, alright? While these rules may not maximize overall happiness, they will at least guarantee that net happiness never decreases. Ask for clarification. What do you mean by this? Most of the time, the rules we follow should result in a net gain of happiness for society. Most of the time, he says. Most of the time. While this may not always be the case, such as a situation where one's free speech hurts another's feelings, society is much better off if these rules are always followed than if they're never followed. See, he's talking about rules that are always followed. He's an MP, by the way. He's a lawmaker. What he's describing is the act of making laws. And so again, his solutions are limited by his own place in the world. I mean, he's an MP, so what he's describing is how to make a good law. But law does not necessarily guarantee happiness, and doesn't necessarily guarantee morality neither. To at least guarantee that net happiness never decreases. I mean, instead of describing how to achieve this happiness, what he's describing is how to create laws that are good. Do you guys see that? Can you back this up? Of course, old chap. Let us thus consider the rule that citizens are considered innocent until proven guilty. I will demonstrate that this rule increases overall happiness in most situations. See, there's always exceptions. With this rule, any man knows that he will get a fair trial, and thus is protected from false accusation. True, sometimes guilty criminals get away as a result, but can you imagine a world where this rule were not followed? Power-hungry prosecutors would run innocent men into the ground, with defense attorneys having to fight against ridiculous odds just to prove them innocent. Sounds terrible. Yes, it truly would be. Might make an interesting game, though.